It is high time that Skeletor joined Ziggy back here over at my quarantine facility. I have a special stall ready for Skeletor that I'm going to let him eat the grass in. But before I bring him over, there are a few things that I really need to get done over here. This time of year, I do quite a bit of juggling the horses around as I put them out on pasture.
Hey, Zig. Hey, buddy.
Ziggy is done with quarantine, so he can be mixed in with the other horses now. I was planning on bringing him over to the other barn, but I figured he and Skeletor can stay over here. Then if I take them on any trips, the neighbor horse will still have a friend. A lot of you guys have been asking where Huckleberry has been, and he's been staying at home a lot because the weather has been either really rainy and nasty, or it's been super hot during the day.
Where is it?
I've also been trying to keep him away from all of the little baby birds that I have over at the barn. This old girl has calmed down quite a bit since she's become pretty good friends with Ziggy. She does know Skeletor, so I'll be interested to see if she remembers him when I bring him over here. It's right around 8 o'clock this morning, so I am going to head off and feed the other horses. Although I do like taking you guys around as I do my regular day-to-day chores, it does take me quite a bit longer to do them when I have you tagging along. So for the past week, I've been doing all the little odds and ends that I've been putting off.
Let's go. Come on.
The pastures are just about ready for the horses to go out on them for the summer, so that is really exciting. With all of the horses over here fed, I am going to load up a few things in my trailer to take over to the other place. I am taking my fancy new mower over there to mow some of the grass for Skeletor. I'm also bringing over an extra water tank just in case I need it, and some more hose. Once I get all of this stuff packed up, I am ready to head back over and start preparing the area for Skeletor. I had thought really hard about putting Skeletor out with the rest of the horses, but I really don't want him galloping around at breakneck speeds. He still is off and on lame every once in a while, so it's important that he is able to stay in a smaller area. This is a little quarantine pen that I have at my other place. I have a lot of stuff to get done today, so I'm going to start by mowing some of the paths to and from Ziggy's enclosure. While Skeletor's over here to keep his little brain engaged, I am planning on taking him on walks around the property. Skeletor should be able to keep a lot more quiet over here as opposed to the other barn. But I do think it's important for him to have something to do, and I'm really wanting to test the limits of this mower. All of these paths that I'm trimming will be really good to get Ziggy out and ride him around a little bit more. I have ridden him a handful of times bareback just to see kind of where he's at and what exactly he knows. I would really like him to have a little bit more of a developed top line before I start riding him for an extended period of time. Due to Ziggy's age, I think it will benefit him for me to start riding him and exercise him in that way to try and build up his top line. And as you can see, this guy is an old pro at all these crazy noises. He doesn't even lift his head up from his breakfast to see what I'm doing over here. I'm really hoping that he will be a nice calming presence for Skeletor. My plan is to have Skeletor in his little grass run during the kind of morning hours, and then him and Ziggy can stay in the back in the evening. Skeletor is sound enough that he can go on field trips with the other horses if I want to take him, so it'll be nice to have two horses over here that I can kind of switch out as I'm doing things this summer. I'm going to mow a little path to the stream crossing that we have on the property, and this should be really nice to get Ziggy back in the swing of things. This creek isn't very deep, but it's a good test to see if he still remembers how to do it. Once I got rocking and rolling on the new mower, I kind of didn't want to stop, so I mowed a ton of little pathways for the horses. Recently, Skeletor has been doing a very good job of staying inside the temporary fence, so I might put up a few little grazing patches for him over here as well. My initial plan for the day was just to pop over here and clean a few things up and then bring Skeletor over in the afternoon. I removed all of the grass clippings so it wouldn't make the horses sick and then headed back over to the barn after lunchtime. Lunchtime today wasn't until 3 p.m., so I am a little bit behind on where I expected to be. Since it's so late in the day, I am going to wait until tomorrow to bring Skeletor over. Tiny wants me to turn on the shaky plate for her, but I'm going to try and zip through a bunch of random chores I have over here before the sun goes down. Out of all of the horses, Skeletor has been getting the most time out on this little pasture. Right when I was about to turn him out, I noticed that these little tiny killdeer that I've been seeing have grown a ton. I think the last time I saw them, they were maybe only a day or two old and they were super cute, but now they are zipping around really fast. Skeletor saw one and I got a little bit nervous they wouldn't skitter away, but this one is really moving. I tried to put Frisco Bill out with Skeletor to kind of calm him down, but it really made him worse. So Skeletor's just been out on his little pasture mowing down the grass for me. Pretty much anytime I'm at the barn, he gets to come out on this little patch. When he goes over to the other barn, I will be able to put the railings back up on the small arena so I can get the horses out and start working them. Studman has been getting turned out in the big arena and he's becoming quite good friends with Whiplash, which is a little bit surprising. Both of these boys were stallions for quite a lot of their life, so it's very interesting to see kind of the dynamics between these two. Studman has also just had his glue-on shoes taken off. I'm giving him a few days for his feet to kind of rest before I put his shoes back on. It kind of seems like these killdeer are following me around. Every time I go out to the arena, I see these little babies. Here is another one of the babies just skittering across the arena. I don't really ever see these guys in the morning, so that's the reason that Huckleberry comes with me to feed in the AM, but in the evening he stays at home. Right when I was starting to move on with my day, I noticed that one of the horses was not where they were supposed to be. It has been a few days since the boys were out on pasture. Their temporary patch has been eaten down, so they haven't been out on grass for a few days. It seems like Big Gus is tired of waiting and he keeps slipping through the fence. Typically this time of year I might see Stewie or Little Gus trying to escape from the dry lot, but to see Big Gus out is a little bit odd. That black tape is electric and it is kind of weird that he's been slipping out because it is definitely on. This will be the second time that I have repaired this fence from him doing this. The other horses wouldn't dare go through all of this wire, but Gus is not very sensitive about his legs and feet anymore. I spent a long time when he was younger getting him used to things around his legs because he had a fence injury before I got him. He has definitely learned not to struggle if he gets caught up in a fence, but it doesn't stop him from plowing through them sometimes. With him back in the dry lot, I set out to continue on with my day. Gus is one that should not be out on the lush spring grass, especially in the evening, so I'll definitely have to fix this fence again before I leave for the night. It is around 4:30, 5 o'clock, so I can feed these guys their dinner already. Hopefully that will help Gus from escaping before I get the fence fixed again.
Hey, Nigel.
I gave Nigel his first dinner for the evening. Studman got a little snack outside, and then all of the boys did get their dinner time hay. Since they have eaten down all of this grass, I am going to remove this fence and put it somewhere else. Prim can be a little bit sensitive to the spring grass, and because she doesn't get turned out with anybody other than Frisco Bill, I do wait quite a while before I put her on grass. There were some casualties from my erratic driving with the four-wheeler. I am planning on putting up 2 new temporary little pastures. One will be for Frisco and Prim, and another will be for Studman.
Come on.
Frisco has been getting turned out a lot as well. He just kind of wanders around and eats whatever he can find. While he's grazing, I am going to pop over and put up a T-post to fix the fence in one spot. When I got Studman, he did have a deficiency in some vitamins and minerals. That can sometimes lead to the horses chewing on the fence, and he chewed right through one of the posts like a little beaver. The pasture has been growing a ton. We've been getting some really rainy days. It actually snowed a couple days ago. I don't really like to spray too many chemicals around the property, but I do spot spray the patches of weeds that still come up. When I first started renting this place, it was basically all weeds in the pasture, so it's really come a long way. Since we are hopefully planning on buying a new property soon, I am just going to do a temporary fix for this fence. I have a feeling that when I leave, I'll just pay to have a lot of the fence replaced because there is quite a bit of wear and tear on it. I'm just going to go ahead and pop this T-post in, and this should do the trick. This is something I've been meaning to do, but it rained a few days ago and the ground is still pretty soft. I am going to have to go ahead and get a cap for this T-post so the horses don't get hurt on it, but this should make do for now. It is a little bit crazy over in Whiplash and Goose's pasture how tall the grass is that I planted last year. This area used to be part of their dry lot. I did make their dry lot a little bit smaller this winter. This is grass I planted last year, and it is about 3.5 feet tall. Unfortunately, there is a bunch of fanweed that popped up that I'm going to have to be keeping an eye on pretty closely. The only place on the property I have this is in areas where I put round bales a few years ago, so that was a mistake on my part. This brand new grass that I planted this year is coming up, even though the gophers do seem to be chewing on it. And with that task on, I can move on to the next thing. These boys have been drinking a ton of water because the temperature has been a little bit on the warmer side. I am finally starting to feel like it's actually summertime. For all the really bad weather we have in Montana, there's about 2 months out of the year where it's nearly perfect, and we are coming up on those times. Goose got his legs stuck in the fence a few days ago, and I still cannot figure out where that happened at. He has a few deep scrapes on his hock, but other than that, he is totally fine. I just washed it with some chlorhexidine so it wouldn't get infected, but it is healing up really nicely. There really isn't any fencing in his dry lot enclosure that he could have gotten it stuck on, so I'm gonna have to check the perimeter of this temporary pasture. Skeletor has been running around a lot more lately, so I think his leg is feeling a ton better. I did lunge him for maybe 5 minutes the other day just to see how sound he was and to see if he would be a little bit sore the next day, and he seemed fine. I will be taking down his temporary pasture today and mowing it, hopefully, to get ready for tomorrow.
Frisco Bill?
As I make my way back to the temporary pasture I have for Prim and Frisco Bill, I can see that he has already started munching away. I did mow around the perimeter, so all I have to do is pop the fencing up and then put the step-in posts in. This is a pretty decent sized area for these two. It'll maybe take them 2 weeks to clean up. Once the grass is pretty short, I'll mow over it and I won't put them out on this for the rest of the year.
Come on, old boy. Come on. That's weed.
I have been trying really hard to transition Frisco away from spending so much time with Prim, but he is having a little bit of a hard time with it. With all of this fencing up, it is time for me to move on to my next task for the day. I'm also putting up a temporary pasture around the couple of trees that are over here. I do just bring over the fencing from Skeletor's run to this other run, so I have to wait until later today when Skeletor is done eating to move it. He has pretty much taken down most of the grass except the stuff around the edges because it is touching the electric fence. This area around these little trees is what Studman is going to get turned out on. Because he has foundered in the past, I am very careful about the amount of grass he gets and how mature it is when I first turn him out. I really want to find out how Goose hurt his leg, so I'm going to go check the perimeter fence. It doesn't take me very long to find out the exact spot where he got his leg caught. Gus is a little bit upset I don't have his dinner for him yet. All of my fencing is smooth wire fence. I don't ever use any barbed wire anywhere. People think because it is really pokey that horses will just naturally stay away from it, but Goose definitely got his leg caught on this wire by accident. He squirmed around a little bit until he stopped, but if this had been barbed wire, it would have completely shredded his leg. I have a feeling he was just running around and playing and accidentally put his leg through the fence and then got a little bit surprised by it. This fencing does have tensioners at the end, and that is typically the area that it will break if one of the horses runs into it or gets a leg caught. I totally forgot to turn the fence off and did get a little bit of a surprise zap as I was fixing it. When I got all of the wire back through and went to go put it on the tensioner, I realized that the actual wire broke. Hopefully there's enough left on this reel that I can unwind it and kind of splice it together and won't have to replace a bunch of the fence. Over time, the wire will kind of stretch out, so the tensioners make it so you can tighten up the fence periodically. I have to pop back in the barn for a few more supplies before I fix the fence, and I find Frisco Bill inside the aisleway, just enjoying the nice big fan I put up for the summer. Most of the horses I would never give this much freedom to, but Frisco Bill has been around a very long time and he kind of just does whatever he wants. I think with the solid door on his stall, it gets a little bit too warm in here in the afternoon for him. He has been having an allergic reaction to something that's been in the shavings I've been buying him, so I have to switch back to ones that I can get here locally in Montana. Even my scratches couldn't entice him to stay in his stall, and he popped right back out to catch the breeze. Usually these guys get their own fans during the summertime, but I'm trying to cut down on the potential for fires in here. So I just have one giant fan that I only plug in when I am on the property. As I'm giving Frisco a good scratch, I do notice one of the tools I came here for. It seems like Skeletor is a little bit tired of being out on his pasture for the day. I do have to fix this area of the fence and then the area by the water tank that Gus broke today. Even though it does look pretty
Sorry,
bright
buddy.
out still, it is around 6:30 in the evening. These boys were pretty disappointed to find out that my bucket of fencing supplies was not their ration balancer for the evening. Once I get this wire unwound, it looks like I do have enough to connect them back together. And this is about the best I could manage with what I had left. This is the little tool that allows you to tighten up the fence. So I'm going to tighten it, probably not as tight as I regularly would because I don't want it to break. Judging by his leg, Goose didn't wiggle around a whole lot before this fence broke. For all of you guys wondering why Scarlet isn't out on regular fence, she would probably just run right through something like this. I put a few more fencing staples back in and then I was onto the other part of the fence. I was really excited to see that the baby birds that were holding my trailer hostage were out learning how to catch worms. So there is the baby bird and then the mama bird is still feeding him a little bit. Having them build a nest in my trailer did set me back a few weeks in my timeline for hauling out the horses this summer, but it was totally worth it to see this little guy bebopping around. I do see this mama bird every single year, so I think she's gotten used to me. Tiny really doesn't like to catch birds, but she is a little bit annoyed I haven't turned on her shaky plate yet this evening. The amount of gophers that are on the neighbor's property is exploding right now, so she is really on high alert.
Here, Teddy.
Recently, she has been extra feisty. I think it's the nice weather that we've been having. I have noticed that when it's really hot during the afternoon, she has been snuggling up in Nigel's enclosure underneath his little sunshade. Out of all of the horses on the property, Nigel is still definitely her favorite. As I head back to the four-wheeler, I noticed that both of the little baby birds are still kicking, so that was pretty cool. It also looks like they have learned how to fly pretty well already. I've noticed that they have taken up residence in the tree behind the barn, so hopefully they won't build another nest in my trailer. The last fencing task out here I have for today is to cap the T-posts that I put in. I've seen tons of horses get hurt on the ends of T-posts, so when I do have to use them, I do make sure they stay covered. I'm also going to slide the rest of this post down here. Pretty much good as new, I'd say. I'm going to spruce it up a little bit more before I turn the horses out so they don't get snagged on it. I also have another T-post to put a cap on. Goose keeps taking this one off, so hopefully this one will stay on a little bit longer. It is getting pretty warm out, and I do still have to clean up all of the stalls in the barn. When Skeletor leaves, I am probably going to move the horses around into different stalls, and Frisco Bill looks like he might want to be in this one. I bet it does get a lot cooler in there because the walls are not solid. With the sun going down, I am going to bring the boys in and give them their dinner. Another thing that I've been doing recently is bringing Scarlet in to have her meals. So I'll bring her in from her round pen and put her in a stall in the barn. I think it's really been helping her calm down a little bit more. She does come in the barn when the weather is really nasty, and it is getting to be where it's too hot for her to stay out in her round pen during the day with no shade. Probably when Skeletor leaves, I'll move everybody around and make sure she has a stall with a run attached. I am thinking that she might go out into Whiplash and Goose's little dry lot with Stewie maybe. I don't know. I still have a few things I need to iron out. Moving the horses around in the springtime can be like a giant game of Tetris with horses. There are certain horses that I do like to keep together. I also have a few horses that cannot be in a stall. Even with the extra space of the run, Little Gus and Whiplash do really badly if I put them inside. Little Gus gets ulcers almost immediately, and Whiplash just paces around and around all day long. There are also some horses that do not get along with each other, so there's a lot of things that I take into consideration when I'm trying to plan who all gets to go out with each other during the summertime. Frisco Bill is also getting so old that the other horses realize that they can pick on him pretty easily, which didn't used to happen in the past. Frisco used to be in charge of all of the horses, but now they do figure out pretty quickly that they can push him around. It is around 8 o'clock and it's a little bit late for these guys to be getting their ration balancer for the day. With all of the horses fed and Scarlet inside, I do have some time now to clean the round pen out. I haven't been able to use the round pen because it has been really wet along the edges, but I've been dragging it almost every day and it's starting to dry up finally. The last thing I want when I'm working a young horse is for them to be slipping and falling as I'm training them. For me, it's really just not worth the risk of them slipping and hurting themselves, especially when they're learning. So until this is dry, I won't work any of the horses in here. Thankfully, it does look like it is drying up, and maybe in the next couple of days, I'll be able to get Studman in here and restart his training. By the time Scarlet is done with her dinner and I do take her outside, it is getting to be around 9 o'clock. I do still have a few things that I want to get done this evening, so we're going to see how much I can get done before the sun actually goes down. Today was probably the first day that Scarlet went in and out of the barn without getting too upset about new scary things. Even though she is just turning 2 this year, there is a lot of training that I want to get done with her this summer. I don't feel confident enough yet with her respect for the fences to turn her out in any other enclosure besides the round pen. Hopefully she'll calm down a little bit as we go along in her training and she can be out on the pasture with Stewie probably. To finish up the day, I am going to take down this temporary pasture of Skeletor's. Since I will be moving him first thing in the morning, I won't turn him out in here again. This fencing is the exact right size for the other enclosure that I'm making for Studman. There are a lot of things that I would do to this property if I did own it, including making a giant pasture out of this big field that is open. By this time in the evening, Tiny was pretty upset she hasn't had her time on the shaky plate yet. I get the fence taken down and rearranged with some light still left in the sky. You can see the old pasture that Skeletor was in about 2 weeks ago. Although the sun has already set, I am still going to try and finish the mowing for the day. One of the super nice things about the fancy new mower I got is that it does have lights on it. After a treacherous descent from down off of the horse trailer, I do get set up for a little bit of evening mowing. A lot of people have been giving me a really hard time about how I never ride with my horses. With Montana having some pretty crazy seasonal weather, there are a lot of things that I do have to get done before I ever start working them. For me, I spend a lot more of the summer and late fall riding typically than I do in the spring. When the horses finally go out on pasture for most of the time, it really reduces the amount of effort that it takes me to care for them every day. All of the extra time that I spent repairing fences and cleaning their dry lot can be replaced with me actually training on the horses. Of course, if I had less of them, I would have more time to ride, but there are a lot of chores that need to get done around this place, and if I don't do them, nobody will. One of the benefits to renting a whole entire place like this is I can afford a lot more horses than I would if I was, say, boarding at a different facility. I could also probably hire somebody to do all this stuff, but I really like doing it myself. Sometimes that does mean mowing by the light of a full moon, which I'll have to admit was pretty cool. Since I have the mower out and there still is a little tiny bit of light left, I do trim up the boys' temporary pasture just so it looks presentable. All of the horses have been fed. The barn is relatively clean on the inside. With the mower in its resting place for the evening, I only have one more thing to do before I leave and feed Ziggy. Both Frisco Bill and Nigel do get a second dinner mash. It is now around 10 p.m. at night, which is a little bit later than I feed these guys their second dinner. Ziggy is also going to be a little bit curious as to where I am because I do feed him last every day when I get home. But with all of the chores complete, tomorrow I will definitely be bringing Skeletor over to meet Ziggy for the first time. So thank you guys so much for watching and stay tuned for the next video.